My name is Emily Marsh. I am 27 years old. I am currently working in a school district as a school social worker, and I also work with a sheriff's department as a clinician, working with them as a mobile crisis team.
That's super cool.
It is very cool. It is honestly more exciting than my full-time job. So.
Right. So does that ever get like super stressful, especially working with like the police department?
Yes, yes, it can. On a multitude of levels. So, a lot of what I do, both as a social worker and a clinician, is based on a systematic level. I'm only in one system that's part of another system, a part of another system. So, because of that, there's a lot of limitations to what we do because of the overall problems with all of the systems. So when that trickles down, becomes a bigger problem. So obviously, mental health right now is a very hot topic in the country for a lot of different reasons. With that being said, my department that I work with the sheriff's department, they are great. I've not heard a bad thing about them, not only in the community, but working with them as well. Of course, there's going to be a bad egg here or there, but they do try to learn. When they don't understand something, instead of just calling somebody crazy or doing this, that, or the other, they'll ask a question. One of my favorite things that I was asked specifically, I was riding with a new deputy, not new to the field, just new to me.
Mhm.
And one of the first things that she asked me was, what is your specialty in? And I was like, oh, well, mine is kids. I work mostly with kids. That's what I've been doing. And she was like, can you teach me about children and like the resources that we have available and different like mental health things that we can do or how we should best approach them, this, that, and the other. And I was like, wow, thank you for actually caring enough to want to do your job better when I'm not in the car. So
Right.
that was such a big thing, which is really, really cool. Um, but overall, I can't say that there's too many bad things about it. It can be challenging, it can be stressful, but they always have my back, which is super, super great. Where I get stressed out is I think the state of Florida, because they're so far behind in the field of mental health. There aren't enough resources. Not that there are enough resources anywhere, but in comparison to when I worked and lived in New York to here, it's drastically different and it's really bad. So it makes me really thankful for New York and the great things that they're doing. But this state is very far behind. So it's very hard to get past a certain point to get people the care that they need and the consistent care that they need. So I think that's where my biggest frustration comes from, where that takes a mental toll on me is like, well, I'm not doing enough.
Mhm.
So
And how do you handle that? Like, what do you tell yourself when you're feeling that impending like doom?
yes, which does happen a lot. We have a lot of fatigue in my field, but one of the things that I tell myself is that if I can't see that I'm making a difference, I know that I am. I work with so many different families, not only well, through both jobs. I work with both adults and kids, and I do see the accomplishments, right? So even though this person might have overdosed for the third time, right? But they called me before they did it to make sure that I came to save them versus they didn't do that the last time. I just showed up, saved them, and then they said, oh, I'm good. I don't need to go to the hospital. So, so it's the little wins and the reminders of the little wins that keep me going.
Mhm.
But then, of course, just making sure that I have time to myself, not working 80 hours a week every single week or not overexerting myself, saying no, taking care of myself, whether that's sitting on my couch and binge watching a show for 8 hours on a Saturday just because I don't want to go out and deal with people because I've dealt with people enough that week, or going to get my nails done, or going to hang out with some friends, or just doing whatever. I write a lot. Also, that's one of my biggest things is I keep a journal. So I write in it, not when I have to, but just, or not when I feel like I have to. It's when I want to. I never force myself to do it, which allows me the freedom to just write what I want. And if I'm having a bad day, I'll just write about it. Sometimes when I'm having a good day, I just want to write about
Yeah.
it.
So so you talked about like you binge watch shows. Like what kind of shows do you watch that are like feel good or maybe were a bit introspective that made you think about life more?
Oh wow. Well, I can answer both of those. Shows that I watch to just de-stress or not think about literally anything would probably be The Big Bang Theory is definitely one of them that I love. Friends is another one. Those are probably oh, and How I Met Your Mother. Those are probably the top three that I'll go watch and I'm just like, I just need some happy things. A show that opened my eyes is Handmaid's Tale.
Oh
That
my God.
the amount of stress and trauma I received from watching it probably is
Yep.
not good, but um, it is a scary but very real possibility of what our lives may look like ten years from now. And it's
Right.
like we're already starting with legislation and things like that of women's rights being taken away. So how far is that going to go? We don't know.
Right.
Hmm.
And how do you handle those situations where you're thinking about the future and like not allowing yourself to spiral into this, you know, being like, oh my gosh, well, this could potentially happen and it's outside of my control. But like, how do you handle that?
Hmm. I think exactly what you said by remembering it's out of our control. And if we took a list and looked at all of the things that are out of our control and then tried to function in life, we would never be able to because we would be so stressed. Um, so I like to just talk about it. I think one of the best ways to deal with anxiety or deal with stress is just simply by talking about it. You could talk about it with a friend, talk about it with a therapist. A show like Handmaid's Tale, you might need to talk to your therapist about afterwards. Pretty sure that's why there's a disclaimer on there. Like it's a little bit heavy content. So I think just simply talking about it, having the conversation, being like, is this a real possibility? Yeah, but what else is a real possibility? The Earth getting hit by an asteroid and we all dying? Like, there's so many possibilities of like absurdness that could happen. I think that part of the problem right now, or at least that I'm having, is a lot of unexpected things or things that I thought were unimaginable things to happen have happened. And unfortunately, our generation is like the big hit of all of these horrible things that have happened. So I feel like for us, a lot of it is it's hard for us to keep that positive mentality because we're just waiting for another bomb to strike because that's what happens every couple of years. Something new happens, and our generation is the one that has to adjust the most. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure how we keep getting the short end of the stick here, but
So, yeah, I mean, we have had some pretty crazy things happen.
yeah.
Um, what continues to like motivate you and inspire you to keep going every day, even with some of these things happening?
Honestly, kids. I think everyone who doesn't hate children, because I understand why people don't like them, but I think everybody should be able to be around a kid all the time because they see the world through eyes that we just don't. They get so, I was with my nephews. They were visiting from New York and they got so excited over an ant, a little ant. He got so excited because he found this creature, this amazing creature. And I stopped and I thought, I forget what it's like to be so excited about something so simple because you're just a kid and you don't have those cares, you don't have those worries. Um, Kids inspire you. They say the most hilarious things, whether they mean them or not. Um, are they difficult at times? Yeah, but it's so rewarding to watch a kid succeed. Even if it's as silly as I learned to cross the T on the top when it's a capital letter versus the middle. And it could
Mhm.
be anything. This kid learned how to jump over a crack on the road. This kid, they think that they jumped a mile. They
Yeah.
think that they can't. My sixth grade elementary school teacher once said, we were walking, not once, she said it every day. We were walking through the halls. She would say, future of America coming through. And that always stuck with me because she was right. She saw us as the future, and they were the future. We were the future, and the kids are the future. So if we take the inspiration for them, keep the creativity, keep the wonder, keep the excitement, I think that managing adult life is much easier.
Hmm. Yeah. Is there something that you wish you could have changed about like your childhood or things that maybe you wish you could tell your younger self now that now you do know?
Um, Stop planning. That's what I would tell my younger self. At all stages of life. That was something I learned very recently, that I've actually suffered from anxiety since I was about 5 years old, which was a very I that was something that actually scared me. How could I have not realized that I was suffering for this long? And it was because my symptoms of anxiety as a kid were planning and were structure. So to
Mhm.
the adult world, I was just a very organized, on time child that wanted to, have these elaborate goals. But a 5-year-old shouldn't have plans like, okay, I'm going to graduate from high school, I'm going to go to college for something to do with helping people. At that time, it was to be a nurse. And then I'm going to get married. I'm going to find my husband in college. I'm going to marry him afterwards. And by 525, I'm going to have my first kid. So that shouldn't be a 5-year-old's mindset. But to the adult world, that was like, wow, she has her life ready. She's planned. She's got her goals set. She's good to go. That should have been a red flag that like, hey, maybe she's struggling a little bit, that she's thinking about that so much.
Yeah, I definitely was that kid too, where I was like always making lists and making plans,
Yep.
being like, all right, well, if I want to have this many kids, I have to start at this age. And like, just
Correct.
wild.
Literally, list on list. And then if this plan doesn't work, well, this one might work. So we might be able, just in case. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
so bad. So bad. So bad.
And anybody who knew me in college, I literally would plan every semester, like semesters ahead of time, because I'd be like, well, I
Yes.
need to take this class if I want to graduate this time.
Yes, exactly. And in college, I was like, well, I'm just trying to make sure that I graduate in a timely manner and I'm able to accomplish everything that I need to. And instead of just taking my sweet time, I was like, no, we got to cram it all in order to keep with the timeline here. So,
Yeah. So what sparks your like creativity now and trying to like break away from structure and break away from planning? Like how do you handle now just being more creative and, lackadaisical?
honestly, I think it kind of happened by accident. Um, Quarantine and COVID definitely were a big eye opener for a planner. I
Mhm.
had, it was
Yeah.
the abrupt stop. And for me, I had just gotten a job. I just moved to a new city, just gotten a new job, hadn't even started the job, and then got laid off because of COVID. So it
Mhm.
was one of those like, well, I didn't save any more money because this was the deadline of when I had to get a job. So what do you
Yeah.
do now? So I think that unfortunately was one of the big things. Another one is just honestly been going to therapy, allowing myself to learn more about myself and learn my anxiety comes from the need to feel safe. So we figured out a way for me to implement the one place in the world we figured out where I actually feel safe is Disney World.
Mhm.
So, and the reason it sounds silly, but the reasons why were because I'm outside. I know exactly where I am. I know what time everything happens. It were a lot of different factors. So we figured out different ways that I could implement those into real life, whether it was making sure I spend X amount of time outside a day, having one AirPod in so that people can still have a conversation with me, but I have the safety of music still sitting in my ear.
Mhm.
And like if my hair's down, nobody knows that I'm being rude with an AirPod and, with the real adults, so different things like that have allowed me to have my anxiety lessen tremendously. So I don't feel that need to have so much control and so much structure and plan 20 years in ahead. because not for nothing, my life blew up quite literally, and there was nothing I could do about it. Had to just move on and go on with life. And it was either that or sit there and be miserable. And nobody wants to do that. So
Right.
I always recommend therapy to learn about yourself and learn about silly things. I would have never have thought about that. Even as a mental health professional, I wouldn't have sat there and thought, let me think of ways that Disney World makes me feel safe and put them into real life. Because like to a normal person, that sounds crazy. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
sounds insane, but it makes sense when you take it and put it in the context.
Yeah. And so you did the Disney college program and everything. So can you talk more about like how that set you up for where you are now?
Yes. Um, oh boy. The college program. I think it taught me a lot about talking to people and talking to people that I don't know. I think that prior to that setting, even in college, it was very I guess, structured with who I was talking to. I lived in an all freshman dorm my freshman year. I had, I was in music groups and things like that. So the people I talked to were the people I had always talked to, the same general group of people. I knew what we were talking about. So, but putting me in that setting, there's anybody and everything I could have to be able to talk about. So that put me in a high state of anxiety, but I had to do it. There was no if, ands, or buts, had to do it. So starting to do that and just starting to have normal conversations with people and just being open and just being able to have fun and, things like that allow me in my profession to be able to openly talk to people and not feel weird or have anxiety myself, because it's really hard to sit there and try to help somebody with their problems when you're sitting there having an anxiety attack. It's not the best time.
Right.
It's not the best time. So I think definitely just being able to have that in that setting was really cool. Um, what else about the Disney College program set me up for where we are? I don't know. Honestly, because the reason that I went was like when I went to do the program, I finished my capstone there for psychology. So I did a paper on human interaction within different families from different cultures. So I literally, while I was working, just talked to different families from different cultures and figured out how they interacted with each other, how they interacted with me, how they interacted with maybe another family that was around in the general area. And then I wrote a paper on it just because based on how different humans interact. So doing that for 6 months, I'm very good at observations. So I don't have a lot of the time kids don't want to say what's actually bothering them. I'm able to figure it out just based off of different observations, which is also very helpful with where I am in my field.
Nice. What else do you like recommend in terms of like I know we talked about TV shows, like do you recommend any books or music or what are other things that you do that help ground you that might help somebody else?
Yes. So music has always been something that I connect with. It's always been something very calming for me. Over the years, it's kind of changed. Now, if I just need to relax, I need to zone out, I need to de stress, I won't typically put on music that has words.
Mhm.
So that could be kind of depending on my mood. If I'm just in a zoning out kind of mood, I'll put on different meditation playlists that are on Spotify, things like that. I find that very helpful. Even honestly, sometimes in the shower in the morning, just because it's a very zen mood,
Mhm.
and it helps just waken up a little bit with a clear mind. Um, I'm not a huge reader, but there was a book, hang on, that I did read that I thought it's like it's called Dear Self by Patience Tamara. It's just like a affirmations book, but it's also centered around just like self-love and self-acceptance, growth and healing. So I think that is another big one. Just reading that sometimes, even if it's just a couple pages here and there, both really good things that I like to do.
Awesome. I mean, just to finish up, if there's anything else you'd like to add or advice that you'd like to share with people.
Um, yeah. What about what was I just was talking to somebody about it earlier. Don't be afraid to communicate. Don't be afraid to say what you need. Don't be afraid to have that conversation even if it's scary because what you need is important and you need to take care of you before you do anything else. And that would be my advice because I feel like right now people are afraid to speak up because of what's going on in the country and around the world. We're afraid to say like things aren't okay because of the potential harm that may come to us at the end of the day. So I think
Mhm.
that it's really important to communicate and speak up when you have needs.
Perfect. All right. Well, we are good.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.